Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Self-Care Sunday, episode 16. Today we're going to talk about a virtue. Sorry, I'm going to adjust this here. Oh, that started late. Okay. Hi everyone, welcome back to Self-Care Sunday. This is episode 16. Today we're going to do our usual talking about a virtue, and then we're going to move on to I don't know. I've been thinking about a couple different things, so I'm just kind of gonna let whatever this is happen. It's a long weekend, so I hope that you all are having a good long weekend. If you had any really interesting plans or fun things to do, feel free to leave them in the comments. I like to hear what people are up to. How did flexibility go this week? We talked about flexibility last week. If you practiced that with me and you have any thoughts about it, leave them below as well. If you have any experiences or tips for other people. I have mixed feelings about flexibility because I think it can be a really, really great skill to have, and also it can be something that people struggle with. I personally struggle with flexibility. I like to have a plan, and I like to know what things are going to be like, and I like to have similar experiences to ones that I have had in the past and enjoyed. Like, trying new things is sometimes kind of tricky for me, but then also when you're flexible and you try something new, you might really actually enjoy it. So yeah, I was thinking a lot about that this week, and also how somebody commented how flexibility is specifically challenging sometimes for people with certain forms of neurodivergence. And how having something that's familiar and the same with you when you go into a new experience can be really useful. So this might be having, your favorite sweatshirt when you're gonna go to somewhere new, or I don't know. Actually, I find that when I know that I am going to be in a space that requires some flexibility of me, for example, like if I have to go and do an interview, or I have to go to like a wedding or like something like that, and I know that I have to wear something that I don't typically wear, that's not in my closet, sometimes I'll try wearing it for a day or two before the actual event. That way I can kind of get comfortable in it and get used to it, so that when I actually get there, I'm not fidgeting or trying to feel uncomfortable or dealing with any wardrobe malfunctions, and it's just sort of like a trial run. And then it also feels more familiar, so that you have more room to give to flexibility in other areas of your life. So I don't know, that's my little tip. If you're struggling with flexibility, try to integrate something into it that's familiar, because having both at the same time is easier than needing to be flexible in all aspects of your life. Yeah, that's my experience with it. Okay, we're gonna move on to our little family virtues guide, virtue for this week. I read this earlier this week, but to be honest, I haven't done a lot of prep for today, so you're seeing I almost slept through this. And my hair is wet and all of the things, and I'm still showing up, and so I'm proud of myself for that. But yeah, just keep showing up, people. Over time, things get easier and also harder, and you have to navigate new stuff. So as long as you're being consistent, sometimes that can be a cool experience. And we're already at episode 16. So for episode 16, we're doing forgiveness. This is kind of a loaded virtue. So I want you to take a second and kind of think about forgiveness. Just because it means so many different things to different people, what are some conceptions that you have about it before we even start? Just kind of thoughts. Yeah. And if you're watching this after, feel free to pause and think about this for a little while and come back. But for the sake of time, I'm gonna get started with what the book says. So, forgiveness. What is forgiveness? Everyone makes mistakes. Being forgiving is overlooking the mistakes of others that others make and loving them just as much as before. Forgiving does not mean that all of a sudden you do not feel hurt or that the wrong choice someone made was right. It means that you find it in your heart to give the person another chance. It means that in spite of how wrong they were or how much they hurt you, you can overlook what they did and not hold it against them. Forgiveness means that you don't punish people for what they have done, even if they deserve it. You can even forgive yourself. Sometimes you sometimes do things that you are sorry for and wish you hadn't done. Forgiving yourself means to stop punishing yourself or feeling hopeless because you did something wrong. It is moving ahead, ready to do things differently, with compassion for yourself and faith that you can change. This goes into a little bit about why to practice forgiveness and how to practice forgiveness, and then the signs of success and then affirmation. But for today, I just had some thoughts on forgiveness. So I'm going a little bit off book here. This is like Lizzy thoughts now. Forgiveness is for you, right? It's not for another person. And just because somebody is asking for forgiveness does not mean that you have to give forgiveness. And it doesn't mean that it is something that you can just do like this, right? I feel like forgiveness is an ongoing choice. And like it said, it doesn't mean that what they did was okay. And I also want to note that forgiveness, if it's not useful to you, don't do it. And I know that everybody always kind of brings forgiveness forward as this really wonderful thing that you should be doing, that you have to do. And if you're not in a space right now where forgiveness is useful to you and your journey, don't do it. You don't have to forgive somebody, and forgiving somebody doesn't mean that what they did was okay. And I think that for me, I was reading a little bit from different sources, so honestly I don't know exactly where all this came from and what's my own thoughts and what I read. But forgiveness is typically useful when a relationship is more important to you than a mistake. I'm going to say that again. Forgiveness is when a relationship is more important to you than a mistake. So if somebody accidentally forgets that you're getting coffee together and they miss that appointment with you and hanging out with you, and you forgive them and you can move forward because that relationship is more important than the fact that they forgot that one day, that is an example of when forgiveness can be useful. And I also believe this about yourself. If your relationship with yourself is more important than mistakes that you have made in the past, then it's okay to forgive yourself. And if you're not at that point yet either, you'll get there. You'll get there. So think about that as well. And you can also forgive people and not maintain a relationship with them, right? You can say, I forgive that. I have compassion for where they were at and why that happened. I have compassion for, if you can't have compassion for them, then you can have compassion for the situation, right? But you can also have compassion and recognize that that relationship wasn't good for you. And you can have compassion and recognize that you don't want to continue that. And as a way to move forward for yourself, you have to forgive that situation, maybe even forgive that person, and not keep them in your life. And that's absolutely okay too. And I think a lot of times we think of forgiveness as oh, I'm gonna make amends, right? Or, oh, I'm gonna forgive everything and it's not a problem and it doesn't matter that it happened and I'm gonna forget about it. But that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is a tool to move forward. And a lot of people, what they come to is a split where they have the option of either forgiveness or bitterness. And sometimes you have to ride out the bitterness for a while before you're able to forgive, Or you have to write out the forgiveness for a while until you're bitter. And it's okay to kind of oscillate back and forth between those, because it's not something that just you do once and it's over with. It's a choice, and it's usually ongoing. And typically the things that we think about with forgiveness are not easy to forgive, right? You can typically pretty easily forgive yourself if you accidentally write the wrong letter in a word, and you just delete it and you keep going, right? Like, that doesn't require as much forgiveness as, for example, if you did something that you don't feel proud of. And another thing that I think about forgiveness is, oh no, I lost it. It was really good too. I'm sure I'll roundabout my way back to it, or if I don't, I'll leave it in the comments if I remember. Yeah, so that's just some things that I was thinking about with forgiveness. That's gonna drive me crazy. Maybe I need to forgive myself for forgetting that. I'll work on that. Okay. So a little bit about why we practice forgiveness. We just kind of went into that. And then we'll move on to, how do you practice forgiveness? So you can practice forgiveness by first admitting the mistake that you or someone else made. Facing the truth about what happened takes courage. You may feel sad or angry. Let your feelings come and let them go, just like leaves passing by in a stream. When you are forgiving, you don't punish someone by taking revenge or holding a grudge. You don't punish yourself by calling yourself bad names. Look at what happened, honor your feelings, think, and then decide what needs to change to make things right. The hardest things to forgive in yourself are the things which you do over and over, habits that you feel you cannot control. To truly forgive yourself takes action. Replacing old habits with new ones is one of the best ways to forgive yourself. If someone does something hurtful to you over and over without being sorry, forgiving them won't help. You need to stop giving them the chance to hurt you. When you make a mistake, try to have the courage to change. Forgiveness allows you to learn from mistakes. Sometimes they are your best teachers. Yeah. I think another thing that I was reading is, specifically for people who are dealing with some form of chronic illness or neurodivergence, sometimes getting a diagnosis can allow you to forgive yourself for something that you have been beating yourself up about for a very, very long time. So if you have something that's going on in your life that's repeated and it's really hard to change, and you kind of try to forgive yourself, but you have to forgive yourself constantly because it's constantly happening, sometimes having that validation of like, oh, it's something that's going on with me and other people can see it. For example, if you have chronic illness and you have to cancel plans really often, right? After a while, you start feeling like, oh, I'm just not trying hard enough, or I'm not doing enough, or I don't understand why other people are just better at things than I am. But then as you learn to forgive yourself through that diagnosis of like, oh no, I actually am dealing with something real and I am valid in that, it can kind of be a lot easier to give yourself some grace. And so that's another aspect of forgiveness that I've been thinking a lot about. Yeah. Okay. Signs of success. Congratulations, you are practicing forgiveness when you remember that everyone makes mistakes, when you take responsibility for your mistakes, when you share your feelings without taking revenge, when you stop giving uncaring people the chance to hurt you, when you correct your mistakes instead of punishing yourself with guilt, when you accept forgiveness. Keep trying when you are afraid to look at your mistakes, when you judge and criticize others or yourself, when you take revenge or hold a grudge, when you allow careless people to keep hurting you, when you feel hopeless and helpless over bad habits, and when you keep making the same mistakes without learning. Okay, I totally remembered what I was going to say earlier. I was thinking about how forgiveness relates to your authentic self. And I was thinking about how oftentimes when something feels really, really awful, whether that's a situation or something that happened or something that's upcoming, maybe it's a decision that you made, all of these different things. When things feel horrible, it's probably because it's not your truth and it's far from the example that you would like to set for yourself and for others. And so with forgiveness, it's typically in those situations that feel really far from your truth, and how forgiveness is kind of like a conscious choice of, okay, I acknowledge that that didn't feel good and that felt really far from who I am and my truth, and so I'm going to actively try to move towards what's good for me and what I believe in and my authentic self and experiences. And forgiveness is acknowledging that that's really far from where you're at and that it's okay because it's a part of the experience moving towards what you want and who you are. And I have some examples of that, and our brains like to serve up a lot of stuff to us, right? And one of the examples for me is I fairly consistently think about this. And I don't know why, because I have accepted the fact that I can't change it and that I did the best with what I had, with where I was at, you know. And it's really silly because I still think about it very frequently, actually. It's one of those things that my brain pops up at night when I'm like trying to sleep and you're like, ah, thanks, great, this again. And I was in high school. And after a show that I was in, we went out to dinner. And the restaurant was still open, but they were moving from like regular meal hours to just appetizers for like the happy hour. And it was like 5 minutes prior to when that happened. And I didn't understand why it would make a difference whether I ordered off the full menu or the appetizer menu at that time. And somebody mentioned to me, they were like, oh, are you sure you don't want an appetizer? And I was like, no, like, I want this other thing. And the waiter was like, yeah, let me just go check and make sure that we can do that. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I ordered this thing off the main menu. And the person, one of the people that I was with, actually offered to like pay for my meal and tip for me and everything, and I was like, no, I could do it. And they were like insisting, and so I was like, okay, thank you so much. Like, I just didn't get it. And now as an adult, after I have worked in food service, I realized that they had probably created that appetizer menu so that they only had to use certain things in the kitchen, so that the cleanup process at the end of the night would be significantly less. And so potentially they had already cleaned that other area of the kitchen, and I had just made them like mess it up and re-clean it. And so as an adult, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Like, that's so embarrassing. It's like when you're in a store and you don't know that it's closed, you know, like that kind of stuff. And so as you're like, because that doesn't feel authentic to me. Like, I care about other people's effort and their work, and if I had understood the full scope of things, I would have acted differently. And even though that's a really small example and not a big deal, it's something that I think about frequently because it's a good example of how ongoing forgiveness happens, right? Every time you think about something like that, you are acknowledging that that wasn't something that felt good to you, and it wasn't something that felt authentic to who you are and what you believe in. And so you have to forgive yourself for just flat out not knowing, or for knowing and making a bad choice. Yeah. So, there's that. I'm gonna move on to the little affirmation. The affirmation is, am forgiving of myself and others. I learn from my mistakes. I have the power to keep changing for the better. Yeah. I am forgiving of myself and others. I learn from my mistakes. I have the power to keep changing for the better. Yeah. Okay, there it is. Moving on to our little activity now that I've rambled for long enough. I have two kind of shorter things that I want to do today. The first thing that I wanted to do is give ourselves a hug. Because sometimes when we're thinking about forgiveness, we're thinking about things that can be inherently difficult or challenging. So just give yourself a little hug, or a big hug. Just take a second. Say thank you to yourself for working on that. It's not easy. Okay. And the other thing that I was thinking about that's pretty much unrelated, but is an activity that I wanted to do tonight because I know that a lot of people in my life struggle with seasonal allergies, and at this point it's kind of late spring, so there's been a lot of seasonal allergies happening. And I wanted to do kind of like a face massage with you guys. I'm not a professional, this is literally something that I made up. So if this isn't working, I don't know, maybe find a different YouTube video. But I find that massaging my face and kind of my sinus area can really help with that congestion. So I just wanted to share what I do as a part of my self-care practice. Usually what I start with is kind of the back of my neck. And I just kind of massage up and down the back of my neck. And kind of right at the base of your skull is another really good place. I think you might even have sinus cavities there. I don't know, if anybody's really into biology and knows that, write it in the comments. Yeah. Just kind of massage the back of your skull there. And then I kind of move forward behind the ears. And I actually do quite a bit of ear massage as well. I don't know if I've done that with everybody before. Maybe not. Should I do some ear massage next time? Because it's really related to your vagus nerve, and that can be really calming for some people. So if you ever were one of those people who really enjoyed having a Q-tip in your ear, there's a reason for that. It's because your vagus nerve is connected to that, and it is physically calming. That said, putting Q-tips in your ears comes with a lot of risks. Don't do it. Yeah, don't put things in your ears. So, once you've massaged kind of behind your ears, and you can stay in any of those areas if they feel really good, I kind of move forward towards the temple and massage back over my ear. Just kind of moving back like that. You can also do small circles if that feels good. And then I like to take my fingers and kind of make little claw hands and put the knuckle portion, like right through here, right by your nose, and bring it outward and up, kind of following your cheekbone. You can kind of go below your cheekbone as well. Be pretty gentle. Some people like to use like a face lotion while doing this. Sometimes that helps a little bit as well. And you don't have to press super hard. So just kind of go with what your body says to you. And then I want you to take your middle fingers and put them, because the middle finger is like, I think, the strongest finger in terms of pressure. So put your middle fingers on either side of your nose and kind of just go in some circles there. You can also just slightly let your head lean forward. And sometimes you can really like feel the congestion moving around or leaving. So if you need to blow your nose or anything, go for it. Also, if you ever have a toothache and you're not sure why, and you like go, even if you like go to the dentist and the dentist is like, there's nothing wrong, get your sinuses checked because you might have a sinus infection that you don't know about. So if you're ever like, my teeth hurt, it might be a sinus infection. It's all kind of in the same area. So once we've done that, I like to move on to just, I do my little claw hands again, and I just go right above my eyebrow and kind of down towards the temple. And then you can kind of take your middle finger again and go right up below the brow bone, right here, kind of where your eyebrow starts. And you can kind of massage that area as well. Sometimes that feels good. You don't need to go like super far into your eye socket or anything, but you can also use your thumbs like I'm doing here. Yeah. And then I also like to kind of go, I do the same thing here, kind of back along the jawline, right through here. And sometimes you can also feel that you have lymph nodes right through here. So if you've never felt like lymph nodes, they're fairly small when you're healthy. And if you get sick or something, they kind of swell up a little bit. So if you ever kind of feel back in here something that feels like, I don't know, a small grape, a blueberry, kind of, that's a lymph node. And you also have them along your armpits and kind of like in your legs, in your groin area. So if you've got lymph nodes that are kind of swollen, sometimes gently, just, and really, really softly, just kind of massaging the area. Another thing that's kind of important to note is if you ever choose to like massage more towards the front of your neck, only do one side at a time. And that's because you have really large, I don't know if they're veins or arteries or specific, but they go right through here on both sides. And so if you massage both at once, it can kind of compress that and cause an issue with blood flow to and from your head. So choosing one side at a time. If you're kind of going like up under here, I don't know if you should do one side or both. I'm gonna say do one side. Check with your doctor. Yeah. This can also be a really good way to like calm your heart rate a little bit too, just massaging one side at a time. Yeah. And your shoulders a little bit too if you feel like it. Or maybe your head. Another really good thing, it feels good to massage like your scalp. I personally really enjoy that. Also, having somebody play with your hair, I love that. I love the feeling of having somebody play with my hair. So, yeah, take a little time for self-care with that. That's all I got for you guys today. Let me know how it affected your sinus congestion and your allergies, if that helped at all. I feel for everybody. Allergies can be really miserable, so keep on keeping on. You'll get through it, I guess. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling now. I love you all. Have a good rest of your evening, and if you have Monday off of work, enjoy that, relax a lot. I'll see you all next Sunday. Okay, goodbye!